Well, good afternoon, Cowboys Nation. How are you doing today? We just come off a great victory against the Washington Commanders. He keeps telling me not to call them the Redskins, although that's a lot I've called them all my life, even when they're the Washington football team or whatever they want to call themselves tomorrow. And against Dan Quinn, and we're getting ready to face the New York Giants. Tomorrow on Thanksgiving. And so the injury report, latest I've seen is Zach Martin and Trayvon did not practice the other day. Hopefully they'll get to practice a little bit today in the walkthroughs and actually have a chance to make the active roster tomorrow. Some people that are looking up Tyler Smith, Brandon Cooks, different ones are actually getting some participation in. So hopefully we'll have a more healthy roster going into the game Thursday. We're going to be facing some players that, again, are playing for their livelihoods. There's, 1,696 active roster spots in the NFL. And these guys play with pride too. They get paid. They go cash a check during the following week for their efforts on the football field. So look forward to that. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. My favorite holiday. How could it not be? Food, Dallas Cowboys football, and getting to spend time with your family. But also I want to just kind of take a little side detour here, folks, from my normal routine on this show, and just let you know that if you're out there and you're listening, and you haven't heard from a friend in a while, reach out to them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Dak Prescott won Man of the Year recently, Walter Payton Man of the Year, a great accomplishment for any NFL player. But Dak won it based on his organization and their efforts to mental health issues. That's a real thing, especially around the holidays. Apparently, we deal with a lot of different things, a lot of stress, a lot of different factors, that can cause issues for us as human beings. And it's hard sometimes to open up to individuals, but if you're sitting there dealing with something, think of that one person that you trust more than anybody, or that it's in your life that that you can go to. Reach out to them. Let them know what's going on and stuff. It could be the stress of the holidays. It could be money issues. It could be loss of loved ones, around the holidays. That kind of amplifies as we gather around with our family. We tend to miss those that aren't here. 3 years ago this Christmas, a gentleman that, he was my dad's baby brother, my Uncle David. It was tough. I mean, we lost him. I spent Christmas in the hospital with him, and it was tough because, even though he was my uncle, oftentimes he called me brother more times than he ever called me nephew. But he was a friend and a close confidant, and we could talk, and I knew I could call up my Uncle David, and at a drop of a hat, he'd be there. I never hesitated. I never doubted that. Uh, and he just always was there. And now he's gone. He's not here. I find myself a lot of times going up by his gravesite, and he's buried there next to my grandmother and grandfather. And although I never knew my grandfather because he passed away before I was born, I find myself going and talking to him. Sometimes just updating him on life, what's going on. Uh, and sometimes that's therapeutic because I miss those times when I could sit there on his porch or in the living room and talk to him, or just hang out with him at a ball game or something, talking. And, it could be that. It could be stress of all the family obligations that could be weighing you down. It could be money. It could be lack of food, lack of home, lack of family, lack of friends. It could be a lot of factors that weigh on us during this time of the year, and it's amplified during the holiday season, unfortunately, for a lot of folks. Uh, Reach out to those individuals that you trust in your life. Uh, I got to confess. I mean, I brought that up because this past few days found me in a place I didn't really want to be mentally. You know, uh, I was coming off a great win. If you watch Dad and the Boys, you probably like, there's no way this dude's ever felt depression. But I was fighting it pretty hard last few days. Uh, really hard. A lot was stacking up, and it seemed like, every time you turn around, take another gut punch. Um, and My wife, just celebrated her birthday last week. Michael's put that out there several times on social media, and God bless me with that woman. But the devil, he tends to he takes and points out other things, and he tries to make life difficult. Uh, and life's hard on its own. Make no bones about it. But he tends to amplify it, especially at the holidays. And I was dealing with a lot, and it just seemed like it was weighing me down, and she could sense it. Uh, but I wasn't opening up. And she's the one person I trust more than anybody. Uh, but I don't want her to see all the time, sometimes see, me at my weakest. Uh, and Last night we was headed to Freedom Biker Church over in Hickory, North Carolina. And we was driving down the road, and I was listening to my playlist on Spotify, and I hadn't heard this song in a while. A few, several trips and stuff. It's been several days since I've heard it. Because mainly, if I'm listening to music, usually it is on my playlist, one or the other. But this was on my most favorite playlist of all my favorite songs that I've picked out so far in that playlist. And it was Montgomery Gentry, and it's called Lucky Man. And it talks about, all the things that annoys him at the beginning of the song, and then it gets to the chorus line, and it says, "I know I'm a lucky man. God's given me a pretty fair hand." And I cranked the radio up, and my wife's like, "Did he really even realize that me and his daughter are in the car?" You know, and I was singing basically at the top of my lungs, trying not to cry in front of him. Um, he knows our heart. He knows everything about us, but he knows what we need most of the time. And in that instance, he provided it. Uh, and that song, I love it because in the second line of the thing, it says, "And last Sunday when my Bengals lost," well, I replaced the Bengals with the Cowboys because, unfortunately this year we've been having a lot of that. Lord, it put me in a bad mood. And if my family will tell you, if Dallas loses, I'm almost unapproachable. I go in a bad mood real quick. that's temporary because I know that there will be another Sunday, another game, another season, whatever the case may be. But I thought it was ironic, but it was what I needed at that time. And then, went to Bible study last night, uh, and really good series of scripture that we studied last night, and the conversation and everything. And then afterwards, I went up and spoke to somebody I've grown real close to at Freedom Biker Church, and that's the associate pastor, Nick Brooks. Thank you. I love you like a brother. And him and I talked a little bit, and I was able to open it up to him because amazingly, we over such a short period of time, we've developed a friendship that I trust Nick, you know, and I told him, that, this last few days I've struggled, and, he told me, he said, yeah, he said, Mac, I took in, I kind of sensed that. He said the other day when I was talking to you on the phone, he said, you didn't sound like yourself. And this was Monday, right after the Dallas Cowboys won, against Washington, and I'm upset. You know, it just, I say all that to say this: there's somebody in your life that you trust. If you're going through these problems, because any of us can face it, reach out to someone. Reach out to that person that you trust the most, and a close friend. In my case, I trust my wife the most. And I'm not slighting that, but sometimes I just don't, I'm not comfortable showing her my weaknesses. So then I reached out to Nick, and more than that, even if you don't trust in God, because like going to the thing last night, he provided something on my radio station at that moment that I needed so badly. Because like I said, I cranked it up. I'm typically, I'll sing low in my car, especially if other people are in there. Now, if I'm in there by myself, you might can hear me in the car beside me, or as you're passing me on the road, or I'm passing you. But when other people are in the car, I tend not to sing as loud. I was belting it out last night with Lucky Man, because God has given me a pretty fair hand. More than I deserve. I know that. But sometimes the devil can weigh on, he can sense that little weakness, that crack in the armor, and he can take it and penetrate it and try to devastate your life. And he was definitely working on me the last few days. And God let me know that he was there, and go to him, So with all that said, if you're having mental health issues, please reach out to somebody, get help, just somebody to talk to, somebody that you trust. Make sure it is somebody that you trust, because you don't want people running and talking about you, and if you're, even if you don't think you're that person that you trust, that somebody should trust in you, keep their stuff in confidence. Don't go spreading it around. They reached out to you for a reason. But keep that in confidence. Now, some news broke after Sunday's game that has Cowboys Nation up in arms, folks. And I would be, it would be bad karma not to speak about it. Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan took and went out and said, don't be surprised if Mike McCarthy gets an extension on his contract. He didn't see that it was out of the realm. What are your thoughts? I know my thoughts. I've said all along this year that unfortunately Mike McCarthy, not necessarily put up in the best position to succeed. And that's what a coach does. A coach puts his players in the best position to succeed on the field. That's the coach's main job. Develop a plan to put their player in the best position to exceed expectations and to succeed in providing what they can do within their own physical limitations on the field to be successful. Unfortunately, I personally do not believe that the front office put Mike McCarthy and the coaches on this team in that position this year. Uh, and that's no fault of his. Again, and they talk about the football gods. People do. There's only one God, folks. And he's not, even though Dallas is his favorite team, I don't think he plays favorites in what happens on the football field on Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays. So as we navigate a football season, there's injuries. And man, has Dallas faced so many injuries this year to key players. Michael was sitting there talking about this past Sunday. He's like, Dad, there's over $100 million that are going to be out of the game. That's not even, over $100 million of players not in the game. Now, granted that when you throw in the Dak contract, I mean, $60 million man, you don't have to have a lot more injuries. But there again, the front office knew that if they paid Dak Prescott, and I'm all for paying Dak Prescott, great player, great human being. Again, Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner. If you're paying him that kind of money, then there's going to be limited pieces of the pie, as Stephen Jones likes to say, for the remainder of the players. So he's got to elevate, and your stars have to elevate. That's the reason I was so hyped on Micah Parsons this past Dad and the Boys, because Micah Parsons is one of those elevators. He is a true team leader. He is somebody that will fight, play in, play out. You never have to question his heart, his effort. I've got friends that are, Washington Commanders, and he even said, we was at work and we was walking, and he told me, he says, he said, yeah, you got to admire Washington because they just basically said, well, we'll just hold Parsons on every play. They'll call some, but they won't call them all. We're not going to dedicate 2 or 3 people to him every time. And he can get through those. We'll just hold him and see if they call him all. And I think that tends to be the league that as we face opponents is they just hold him and see if they call him every time. They're not going to call him every time. Heck, they very seldom call him. Of course, we as fans will shout it out. He's holding Parsons. Of course, Parsons brings out, but they don't listen to him. They don't listen to us either. Refs, do your job. If they're holding and you see it, I get you're not going to see every one of them, but you see some of them. If you're just sitting there looking right at the person, it's kind of hard to say you didn't. It's kind of like when I'm out riding my bike. It never ceases to amaze me. I'll be going down the road and somebody will be sitting there and they'll look both ways. They'll look dead at me, dead in the eye, and then they'll pull out in front of me. And nothing makes me madder because you're putting my life at risk in your stupidity. And guess what, ref? You're putting this man's livelihood and the awards that he could be receiving at risk because your failure to do your job. Okay. So I've been informed that by the producers that I need to take a quick commercial break. I went a little bit longer on this first portion of the episode than anticipated, but I hope you enjoyed it. So for those of you listening on Boom Broadcasting or Fans First Sports Network, we're going to take a quick commercial break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Starstruck with Mac Davis on Fans First Sports Network and Boom Broadcasting, uh, social media platforms. Uh, so, if you've been following this show, you know what I do at the end. Uh, I've been counting down my top 100 fan favorite Cowboys. That doesn't mean that they had the most outrageous stats. They weren't the best Cowboys statistically wise or even at their position. It's who I like as a person, as a player, whatever the case may be. There's so many factors that goes into this. Uh excuse me. I've been battling this cough for a few days now. Uh and The one preference is they cannot be it's not based on their coaching or Tom Landry's number one all time forever and ever. Uh hallelujah. Uh the other one is uh that they had to don the star for 1 year minimum uh as a player. And you know, you can move up as the progression goes, you can move down. You know, CD Lamb's already moved up this year. Micah Parsons has. Uh, before we ever get to their names, you know, they've moved up. And you can move down. So if you're out there and you're retired, don't hesitate. You can move down. Now, this next five, we're going to go over them here. And I'm going to introduce number 75 to you, Mr. Randy Hughes. He was a safety with the Dallas Cowboys from 1975 to 1980. Now, if you look at those years, that was when Dallas Cowboys was facing the Pittsburgh Steelers a lot. That was our big rival. Of course, and the Redskins. And the Eagles were, and the Giants. And the Cardinals even. You know, because at that time they were those four teams, the Giants, the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys constituted the NFC East before all these realignments went about. And so if you look at those years, they happen to coincide with Charlie Waters and Cliff Harris, who is a Hall of Fame safety for the Dallas Cowboys. And Randy Hughes was awesome. I mean, it was one of the best periods. I know that we got Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson and Wanye Thomas and Marquise Bell right now as our safety class for the Dallas Cowboys, and which is really good. I mean, really good, really good players there. But man, can you imagine Randy Hughes, Charlie Waters, and Cliff Harris, who is a Hall of Fame safety, and in all honesty, Charlie Waters should be too. Roaming the backfield for the Dallas Cowboys. And oh man, that was a great time to be a Cowboys fan. And it was in my early elementary school years. So I mean, you know, we was always, every time teacher's back was turned, we was talking football. Before class, we was talking football. After class, we was talking football. In the lunch line, we was talking football. At the lunch table, we was talking football. And of course, you know, again, growing up here in North Carolina in the South, we didn't have a team back when I was young. And it was, you was a Dallas Cowboy fan, you was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, or you were a Washington Redskin fan. And that was the predominant. Now, you'd have your outlier Miami Dolphin fan or the Colts fan or this one or that one, you know, Packers fan. But the predominant group was the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Washington Redskins. And so, I mean, these guys help keep me not having to take as much heat all the time. So I loved it. And Randy Hughes was a big instrumental part of that. And I just love the guy. I mean, you know, I've used this phrase, what a dude, a lot. And so he took in he was out there on the field, man, and he participated and he played hard. Gave his all, and that's the one thing that you'll see predominantly on this list is guys that gave their all for the team. You know, and that is a precursor for me. You know, when you're on the field, what do you do? Does your talent take over? Do you give your all? Uh, you know, and so moving right along, because I know we've been a little bit longer this episode, getting to the top 100. Moving to number 74, Andre Gerard, offensive lineman. Dude played center and he played guard. Very seldom does one game taking put you on a list for me, but sometimes it does. And Andre Gerard was, I think he was playing guard that game, and we were going. I'm wanting to say it was the Houston Texans, and we were playing against J.J. Watt. Andre Gerard blocked him. He shut him down. He didn't. He had to move elsewhere. I mean, and when you see that, you know, it's kind of like this earlier in this season when you saw Tyler Guyton there and the opening game of the season. I know Tyler's had his struggles. He's a rookie, but he was on the opening game, and all of a sudden, Myles Garrett leaves his side and goes over and starts facing Terrence Steele because he was not having any luck. So that tells me that kid can do it. Now, whether his future is left tackle or right tackle with this organization, a lot of it will depend on who they draft next year and who we've got coming up, as well as if Terrence Steele is going to continue to keep his job with the potential of a $14 million cap savings going into next year. And, you know, Jerry likes to keep his money tight. You know, and Terrence, I mean, I love you, but you're a Cowboy, but you're, you know, unfortunately, and it was like Amari Cooper. A lot of people give Jerry grief about Amari Cooper. But they were trying to get out of that contract. And when they signed that contract, they knew they would, at 2 to 3 years down the road, they were going to make a choice between Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. And unfortunately, at the time when they had to make that decision for Amari, his contract was not matching the stats that he was putting on the field for whatever reason. I mean, you know, he wasn't matching that. Production wasn't matching the price. And, you know, so they had to move on. And Terrence Steele, that might be your case. But Andre Gerard, if you put him out there, I mean, he just did his job. I mean, he stopped them. I mean, he played center. He was a Pro Bowler. He played guard. He was a Pro Bowler. He just produced, and he went about his business the right way. Wasn't flashy. Wasn't a malcontent on the sidelines. Didn't really get into trouble. Just did his job. Now, as you know, I don't produce, and my tech savvy skills are very limited. And my next guest at number 73 is probably the biggest question mark that Michael had when he was getting the stats and all the graphics and stuff for me. He was like, "Really, Dad? Really?" So rounding up into number 73, thank you, Andre Gerard, for all you did. But we're moving right along because trying to get this episode and get respectful of your time. Moving to 73 is number Randy Gregory, number 94. Now, Randy had two things going against him from the very beginning. One, he was given DeMarcus Ware's number. That's number one. And you're trying to live up to a legend. You know, Dallas has a history, you know, for defensive lineman, 94, wide receiver, 88. Dallas never retires numbers. There's some numbers that people just don't on the football field in the regular season, and that is Bob Lilly's number, Roger Staubach's number, Troy Aikman's number, and Emmitt Smith's number. You just don't see that, right? You don't see that. Now, Deion Sanders made 21 famous in Dallas, but I mean, look at how many people wore 21. Zeke Elliott on offense. You've got Carson right now wearing it. You had Gilmore wearing it last year. And it tends to go toward the cornerback spot that they try to put 21 on. 88's a wide receiver. Antonio Bryant. You got this one and that one that they put on Dez Bryant. Dez did 88 club great. I mean, you had Drew Pearson, the original 88. Not to say that nobody wore 88 prior to him, but he was the one that brought it into prominence was Drew Pearson. Then you got Michael Irvin, who gave it back prominence. And then you had Dez Bryant, and now you got CeeDee Lamb. So, I mean, that's a big thing to live up to in Cowboys Nation. Randy Gregory had that problem. He had that coming right in. He was given 94 DeMarcus Ware's jersey number. The other problem he had was marijuana. Kid just cannot lay the Mary Jane down. Made some bonehead decisions on that front. And couldn't get past his demons on that. Whatever the NFL stance is on marijuana, whatever the country stance is, whatever the state stance is, Randy Gregory knew that was a problem to his career, and he didn't set it aside. So there's two problems that he had. Now, I said two. And earlier I was talking about mental health and trust and finding that person you trust. And confiding in them and getting advice from them. Just having them listen to you to help you through that situation. Now, a few years back, 2021 to be exact, on March 15th, we thought news broke. Randy Gregory signed a 5-year extension with the Dallas Cowboys. Only for Randy Gregory to listen to the advice of his agent who lived in the Denver area. And because of a clause in his contract about suspensions and having to give bonuses back potentially or forfeit bonuses if he was suspended, Randy Gregory chose to, at the advice of his representative, his agent, to back out of that contract and go and sign with the Denver Broncos, where his agent lived. Now, you would think, well, Colorado's a smoke-free state, but the NFL at that point was still not that way. So you saw the marriage in heaven, but Randy Gregory, you chose to go to the Denver Broncos. First of all, you did it on my birthday, which I don't appreciate. That's one reason you're at 73. Now, Michael says he's really even on the top 100. Yes, you were, because I really, really enjoyed when we drafted you. I was so high on that draft pick, and I was so high on the abilities that you presented on a football field. You had amazing talent. You were the number 15 prospect in the nation when you came out of Nebraska. And we got you in the second round that year because of your problems with marijuana and stuff. And you go to Denver, you don't even last 2 years there, and they trade you away to San Francisco. Now, you did get to play in the Super Bowl with San Francisco, and you lost to the Chiefs in overtime. But then you signed on this past year with Tampa Bay during the offseason, and you never even showed up to OTAs and whatever, and y'all mutually decided to part ways. Right now, you're not even playing in the league at age 32. Now, so you bounced around from team to team. Denver, short-lived, didn't even live out that 5-year contract with them, and got traded to San Francisco, was there a year, then turned around and went to Tampa Bay this year. Now, throughout your troubles with marijuana, everybody faults Jerry Jones's ownership for various reasons. But throughout your entire career with the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboy organization stood behind you. Through the suspensions, through everything, tried to get you help, tried to get you through your issues with marijuana, getting you onto the field. They stuck by you even when some of the fans chose not to. Even when the media blasted you for, let's face it, bonehead decisions. Jerry Jones and that ownership group, Jerry, Steven, and the front office stood beside you. Jerry even tried to actually get money into your pocket and sign you to an extension on your contract at one point, and the NFL said, no, you can't do that. Why are you suspended? I'm going to make a bold prediction, and it might be even qualified for out of pocket. If you would have kept that contract with the Dallas Cowboys, you would have fulfilled that 5-year obligation with the Dallas Cowboys, and you'd probably still be in the league playing as a Dallas Cowboy. That's on you, my friend. So I say that to say this. Sometimes that voice that you're hearing from is not always the best person to give you advice. They have ulterior motives. So trust, when I said that earlier, find that person that you can confide in and talk to openly and honestly without reservations, because that's a true friend and stuff. Be careful who you do trust your heart with. Randy Gregory, you trust your livelihood to a man that had ulterior motives and didn't give you the proper advice. Because you know what? Randy Gregory, you would not lost any bonuses. Guess what? You went from your Dallas Cowboy career, you didn't have any suspensions. You had 1 game suspension because of a fight that was later reduced and overturned the very next day to a fine because you started the fight. No drug suspensions. You wouldn't have had to give back any bonuses. And I'm sure Jerry felt had supported you enough and even tried to give you money during that suspension that he would have worked out a way to recuperate you, that you could recuperate that money. You are at number 73 because of my love for you, but you have fallen because of your bonehead decisions. 1, marijuana while you were a Dallas Cowboy and getting suspended so many times for so often, derailing a career. And 2, listening to your stupid agent and going to Denver, backing out of a contract and signing with Denver on my birthday, and then turning around and next thing you know, you're out of the league. You bounced through 3 different teams after that. In that period that you could have been a Dallas Cowboy until 2026. That's 2 years left. And you would have made it, my friend. You'd still been in the league playing, supporting your family. And as a man and a father, that's your number 1 obligation. And it can be trying at times. It can be hard. But that's your mistake. Now, number 72, moving along, because I don't want to bash Gregory. I do love him. Number 72 falls in a unique category. Don Perkins, fullback for the Dallas Cowboys from 1961 to 1968. This was prior to my birth in 1969. Now I ain't gonna lie, I had to make me some cheat notes. on this one. Because most of my experience, well, all of my experience with Don Perkins since I wasn't alive to watch him play has either been through video or award ceremonies or hearing other Cowboys talk about him. But again, just to see one of the prerequisites of this is not only donning the star, but if you'll notice, there's a trend a lot about heart. Uh, you know, during his career, he finished in the top 10 in each of his 8 seasons in the league in the NFL's top 10 rushing in every season of his career. Now, his career kind of started at a little juncture as the Dallas Cowboys, 1961. Well, Dallas was getting a franchise in 1960. And not only that, he was the first running back of the Dallas Cowboys to ever in their history record a 100-yard game. And that happened in 1961 against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, some people are, well, 100 yards. Well, if you look at this season, Dallas hadn't really had many of those, have they? All right. Have we had one run 100 yards? I don't know, but we might have one. But he was the very first in our illustrious history of running backs to ever record a 100-yard game. Okay. And get this, and this shot, even looking back at his career, shocked me. Don Perkins in franchise history currently only ranks behind your NFL rushing leader, Emmitt Smith, Tony Dorsett, and Zeke Elliott in rushing yards. Think of the running backs that have come through this franchise: Herschel Walker, Marion Barber, Calvin Hill. So many various running backs. He ranks 4th behind Emmitt Smith, Tony Dorsett, 2 Hall of Famers, and Ezekiel Elliott, who I dearly love. And he ranks 5th on the touchdown list for running backs. Only one there besides those previous 3 is Marion Barber that ranks ahead of him. Now, while gaining a reputation in the NFL for his courage and resolve on some of the worst teams in Dallas Cowboys history. I mean, because this was in their early years where they were struggling. They were not winning very many games, losing all of them, tying maybe 1 or 2, really struggling as a franchise getting started. And he played with courage and resolve. And also in 1968, at the end of his career, he was instrumental in helping the Dallas Cowboys in segregation while traveling to hotels for games. That says a lot because, not to get into American history or segregation or the way it was in the 60s, but one of the biggest things of when you hear NFL players after they retire, the one thing that they miss the most is the camaraderie amongst their teammates. They miss the interactions with those guys. A lot of them remain friends, but there again, I've got one of my closest friends in this world is Jason Wood. We were stationed together in the military 30 plus years ago. He's still my closest friend. We talk, we'll email each other here and there. We'll talk on the phone once, maybe twice a year, if that. But it's almost like when we do talk, it's almost like we're next door. We haven't missed a beat. confide in him a lot. You know, and I know that Jason's always got my back, and I've got his. Uh, but we don't have that day to day contact, joking around, going doing this, hanging out, whatever. And that's what these guys miss most is that locker room environment once they retire and they're no longer a part of it. And just like, you know, in our instance where, okay, we got out of the Army, I did at different points in our life as we remain friends. But guess what? The Army goes on beyond us. It still exists, thank God. Uh, so does the football team and the locker room. It just changes from year to year as those guys either leave now through free agency or they retire. But even if they go to other locker rooms, they build those bonds that hopefully last a lifetime, but still yet they're not to the quality that they were when they played, you know. And so building that camaraderie while being segregated in team hotel traveling, you're kind of put apart. So him to be able to allow them to become better as a team became instrumental to their success of the 70s. And guess what? That's when I fell in love with the Dallas Cowboys. It's when they became America's team. That's my elementary years, my early life. They had success. And that allowed me bragging rights. It also allowed me to take pride in my team. You know, because like that song I was referring to earlier, when my Cowboys lost, it put me in a bad mood. You know, Lord, it did. It put me in a bad mood. You know, school wasn't as fun on Monday morning. Later on in life, work wasn't as fun on Monday morning when the Cowboys lost. Because I can guarantee you, no matter what, Cowboys Nation, you got some jerk in your circle of influence or your circle, whether it be if they're in your influence or not, at school, at work, in your church, or whatever, that is not a Cowboys fan, and they love seeing you in misery. Period. You know, I love guys on Boom Broadcasting, but hey, they love it when the Cowboys lose. So you can rag me and Michael out. But also, we rag them about their team too. So it's all fun and jest. But again, when my Cowboys lost, it put me in a bad mood. You know, Don Perkins. Don Perkins was inducted into the Ring of Honor in 1976 alongside his quarterback, Don Meredith. Dandy Don. You know, turn out the lights, the party's over. I was thinking about you, Dandy. Actually, I sung your song Sunday when I sung it a little bit preemptive. You know, after Turpin did that touchdown, I was like, turn out the lights, the party's over. They say it all. Good things must end. Lord, did I know that our defense that had played great all game was going to have a total collapse and let Scary Terry score a touchdown. Thank you, kicker, for missing the extra point again. Preserving that victory for us. And then they had to attempt an onside kick instead of kicking it off. I don't know that they wanted to kick it off anyway to Mr. Turpin. But then they kicked it onside kick and won. Yates took it. Maybe not look like a genius with my 1 point prediction, but he secured the victory for us with 8 points when he took and returned that one for a touchdown and got his very first career touchdown, Wanye, and who is a part of my top 100 and continues to move up or will move up in the future. But again, getting back to Mr. Perkins, he was inducted into the Ring of Honor at Texas Stadium in 1976 alongside his quarterback, Don Meredith. And their only person inducted in prior to Don Perkins and Don Meredith, notice the two Dons, was Mr. Bob Lilly, the original Cowboy, who was just ahead of them by a year in 75. So Don Perkins, even though I didn't have the privilege of watching you play day in and day out, the stories I've heard from my dad, the stories that I've seen on TV made you in the top 100 at this moment. And it was because of you that my love for the Cowboys was able to be established and able to grow because you built that, helped galvanize that team, and through efforts to get them not to segregate. And that made them a team, and that made them come together as America's team and have success. And we were able to now cheer for the Dallas Cowboys, win or lose. You're a great story in that, a great cornerstone in that franchise. Thank you for your contribution. And moving along to the last entry today that we'll discuss is number 71 is Terrence Newman. Terrence, whoo, what a career. I mean, even after you left the Dallas Cowboys, you continued to play for several years. But you was a first-round draft pick by the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of time back in that period, I mean, if you look 03, it wasn't necessarily our most productive years that you were here. But you was a cornerstone of that team. You was virtually like a Deion Sanders almost, in the fact that you was a shutdown corner, and you just played on a team that didn't have as much talent and success as Deion's brief stint with the Cowboys. But you conducted yourself first class. I was so tickled when we drafted you out of Kansas State, and you never disappointed me. I knew that if they threw it your way, there was a chance that you would come down with it. It's kind of like today, unfortunately at this year, we really haven't seen it. I'm still waiting on those games where they're going to have to, face the DaRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs as they try to attempt to pass. Because, I mean, even there last year, when they did play together those first few games of the season, it was the Trayvon Diggs and the emerging DaRon Bland, because we really didn't know DaRon Bland like that. He really took off last year and flourished. So we didn't have that. So I'm still waiting on that. But Terrence Newman, he made it difficult for quarterbacks. He came in, he was running sub 4.4s in the 40s in the combine and the draft process. And his speed was evident on the football field. And he covered. Again, he conducted himself a class. He played with heart throughout his career with the Dallas Cowboys. He never made headlines. And when I say headlines, we all get those where, kind of throw a little shade on the team. You never did that. You was a class act all the way. Even when you were at other organizations such as the Vikings, you represented the star beyond reproach. And again, a lot of haters out there like to throw shade on our Cowboys and our players. You never gave them that opportunity. Even though you were on struggling teams, just like Don was. Not to the degree that Don was, but you were on struggling teams and struggling periods in the franchise history. You always conducted yourself honorably. You always played with all the heart you could give. They never questioned your effort. And you lived up to your number one draft status. Thank you for representing my Cowboys like you did. Now, as we go back and we end this episode, goes this is the longest episode I've ever done on Starstruck. Uh, I thank you for your time and patience. Allow me to just open up with you and talk. I want to wish a happy birthday to my daughter who will turn 15. You know, that added to the preparation. I think my baby's growing up. Uh, you know, she'll turn 15 tomorrow. I wish her a happy birthday and all the blessings and stuff that she deserves. Such a cute kid, such a wonderful kid. Um, and I want to end this show a little different today. I want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving and eat lots of turkey and let's enjoy a Cowboys win, Cowboy Nation. And I look forward to spending the weekend with my son at WrestleCade in Winston, getting to meet some of the future and past stars of wrestling. And in the words of the late, great American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, second to none and has no equals. America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, number one in fan base and number one in your heart. God bless you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.